se perdent un peu. On va commencer à quelques minutes de retard. Voilà, 5-10, je pense.
Du coup, je pourrais décaler un peu.
Bien sûr. Oui, il n'y a pas de raison, tu portes le... So we'll run tests. We'll run tests on your video during the coffee break. So at 10:30 we have three presentations. Ending at 10:30, we will be running a bit late because we'll begin a few minutes late. Then Elias will be making a welcome speech for 10 minutes also. And then we'll have a coffee break of about 20 minutes. And during this break, we'll try to find a way that Okay, so the official starting point, starting time is now, but we're just going to wait a few minutes to let people come in. That gives me the opportunity to tell you that inside the room, we must use this mic, which as you can see seems to be inefficient, but actually it allows people online to hear what we are saying. Okay, so if you have, of course, there's one for the speaker, and if someone has a question in the room, I'll pass on the mic so that people who are connected online can hear your question. For those joining us online, we're about to begin. We're taking just a few more minutes to let more people come into the room. So welcome everybody online and in this room. We are super happy to receive you for this Women and Science Share conference. As you will see, the morning is more dedicated to determinants of the lower presence of girls in the scientific studies, and in the afternoon we'll talk more about women in scientific careers. As you can see, I'm using, for the people who are in the room, I'm using a mic which seems to be inefficient. It's actually important because if we don't speak into the mic, people who are online cannot hear you. So please, if you have a question, raise your hand, and I'll be my best to spot you and pass you the mic. So the floor is to Clémence Perronnet, who will present Girls Do the Math, a sociological survey on high school girls. And the floor is yours, Clémence.
Thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm Clémence Perronnet, and I am a sociologist. And for a few years now, I've been conducting mostly qualitative research on social inequalities in science, trying to understand why some people, and mostly girls and women, have such a hard time going into science study and then professional fields. And so today I will present part of the results of one particular study I carried thanks to the support of the Women and Science Chair, and it's about inequalities in mathematics in particular. And it's a study on high school girls, teenagers. And this study is to be published as an illustrated book tomorrow. So it's coming out tomorrow. And the book is illustrated by my colleague Claire Marc. And so I use drawings in the presentation. So all drawings are by Claire Marc. First, I will give you just a little bit of context about what's going on for French teenagers and mathematics right now. And then I will present one particular subject, and I picked the subject of self-confidence for the presentation today. So I'm sure everyone here knows a lot about the context for women in science, so I decided just to bring back a few facts about French high schools mostly. And so to give you a few key figures, this is what is going on in terms of gender and social inequalities regarding mathematics now in France and more internationally. So this is the situation for girls, gender inequalities. We start with more than half girls high schoolers in school, and then we lose them as math courses progress. So when you look at who is studying math at 18 in France in 2021, it's less than 40%. If you look at who gets into the most prestigious science and mathematics programs later on, then it's about 30%, so you lose some girls. And then if you pick one indicator, which is who gets into the top science schools, such as Polytechnique and the École Normale Supérieure or Centrale in France, then you've got less than 20% girls. So we all know about this leaky pipeline for girls in science. But it's also useful to think on other kinds of inequalities, and class inequalities and race inequalities are also pretty strong when it comes to mathematics. So for class, this is still for France. We have about 30% of working class students in high school, but just like girls, they disappear as the math courses progress. So only 17% of students who still study math at 18 are from the working class, and then you find less than 10% of working class students in prestigious higher ed science programs and in top schools. So it's the same phenomenon, really. We do not have data on race inequalities for France because we do not produce the data. So this is a useful comparison to the United States. And the example I picked is the situation for black people. And you can see the same dynamic with 17% of black high schoolers. And then you lose a little bit when you pick only the students who still study math at 18. And then you lose some more if you look at math undergrads. So gender, class and race, we have this three-dimensional state of inequalities regarding mathematics. And a few more interesting facts about the situation in France is that we are at a turning point, and we are at a special moment where the situation for girls especially is actually getting worse. So a few years back in 2019, we almost had a 50-50 girls, boys participation amongst students who studied math in high school around 18 years old. But then there was a high school reform, and it led to a setback and a disappearance of girls in high school math courses. So this is the effect of the reform from 2019, with fewer girls in all math courses in French high schools. Yes.
Some more detail regarding the reform, just to try to understand the relationship.
Oh yeah, I can.
Yes, if you can.
So,
it could be useful.
Yes, it changed the way that the high school and the courses are organized. Previously, the students had to pick a main theme. So it was science, literature and liberal arts, or social sciences and economics, mostly. And when you picked the science course, you had mathematics, you had physics, and you had biology. So this changed, and now students have to pick specific subjects, and they can only pick 3 for their second year of high school and then 2 for the last year. So it became impossible to study math and physics and biology during your last year in high school. You had to pick 2 out of 3, and you could mix subjects also. And so the consequence of having students pick subjects instead of fields led to these results, where you have a drop in the number of girls studying math. This is the simplest way I can explain them. Colette, you wanted to add something?
I just want to say too that because everybody had choices and the mathematics specialty was not compulsory as used to be in all programs, so we knew in 2018 that girls would not pick mathematics, and it's exactly what happened. It doesn't seem to be working. It does?
It's fine, yes.
Okay. Pardon? No, but I don't think it works.
No, it works.
It does? Okay. So should I repeat, or is there enough time that because mathematics was not compulsory anymore starting from the second year of high school, a lot of girls didn't pick mathematics. They decided, well, what the hell, why should I do mathematics if I don't like it, or if I don't see why, or whatever. And before the reform, it was compulsory for almost everyone, except for people in philosophy, and even then, in some years, they could just still have mathematics and so on. That's a dramatic effect of the reform on girls.
And the effect, you can see it here. This in blue is the part of girls that didn't study math at 18 in 2019. 18. And this is the part of girls that didn't study math after high school was reformed. So we went from 70% of girls who didn't study math to almost half of the female population in high school. So a very huge drop. And here you can see this is the, if you pick, for instance, the part, yellow is the part of girls that did more than 8 hours of math a week. And this is, you can see the drop. This is 6 hours, 3 hours, and total of girls studying math. So this is the context of the recent years. This setback, it's equivalent to a 25 years setback in the terms of girl participation in math in high school. Obviously, the result of that is pretty bad for the participation of women later on in math careers in France, especially in universities. So we, in the French university, pure mathematics is the least feminized subject with 14% of women. And if you take all math specialties, you have a little bit more than 22% of women lecturers and professors in French universities. The things are that nothing has changed for 25 years. You can see this. This is a really useful way to demonstrate it, produced by the Femmes Mathématiques organization. It's a flat line. It's not moving. So we have this context of things not changing, and then a recent setback, and there is no doubt that the recent setback in high school is going to have consequences on the professional field, obviously. This was a very short brief on what's going on today to give you a few indicators of why this research project came to life. So the main goal of this research project was to focus on teenagers, 16 years old girl, to understand how they experienced the choice that they could make regarding mathematics and their future professional project. And so I was lucky enough to get the opportunity to make a partnership with colleagues in mathematics, researchers and teachers at French universities in the south, in Marseille. And my mathematician colleagues organized math camp, especially for girls, so single-sex math camps for 16 years old girls. Those camps, they are for a week, so it's week-long workshops where teenage girls are hosted by mathematicians and researchers from the Marseille laboratory. And in the morning, they do math. In the afternoon, they do sports. So they have a very busy day. And then we had a complete sociological study that I carried out with my colleague Alice Pavy. So we observed 2 weeks of math camp, and then we had the opportunity to conduct also in-depth interviews with the teenage girls. So, things are missing from the slide. It's weird. So this is the study we conducted. We used, it's a qualitative study. We used observation. So Alice Pavy and I observed 2 week-long math camps. We observed the girls and the adults while they were doing the problem solving in mathematics, but we also observed everything around it. We observed the sports, we observed the lunch, we spent all our times in the math camps. We conducted semi-structured individual interviews with 45 girls from 45 minutes to 2 hours. We did that during lunch, but also during the free time they had. We also did a corpus analysis on the files and the cover letters all the participants sent to be admitted to the camp. And then we had a final questionnaire at the end of the camp, and this has been reproduced by the mathematicians who organized the camp. So now it's been 4 years, so I have a little bit then, I've got 72 answers to this end of camp questionnaires with kind of satisfaction points and how did you feel during the camp and everything. So With all this material, I explored a wide array of subjects, and this is all that I took out of the study, many, many subjects. So I tried to explore the role of family, also the role of beliefs that girls and adults have in the innate, part of intelligence and math competence. I also tried to explore subjects like elitism and racism, what we can do with single-sex actions are they an effective lever for equality, and also the questions of role models. So this is the very frustrating part, because obviously I'm not going to tackle every subject today, because there is only about 15 minutes left. So for today, I picked one subject amongst all the things we explored in the study, and I picked the subject of self-confidence, because this is one of the, I think, the most interesting thing I discovered in the study, and I think also one of the most useful thing that came out of it. The answer to this question, why are girls less confident in their math skills than boys? And I think it's also useful because this subject of self-confidence, of lack of self-confidence, is widely used and very, very present when we talk about women in science. It's a key word that comes back all the time. So for today, we'll go into self-confidence. And just to give you a few indications about the girls that we surveyed, so there are 45 of them, they are all 16. All of them are very interested in mathematics. Obviously, they are spending their holiday studying math and solving problems. And most of them come from a privileged background. This is the effect of the recruiting girl for a math camp. We can go into that later. Most of them, so from privileged and middle class background, and a minority come from the working class. So self-confidence, to go into a more detailed presentation of the results, and I will start with a case study. And this is the case of Magali. She is the daughter of 2 math teachers. She is an excellent student. So to give you, she has an average math grade of 19 out of 20, which is really, really good and really, really hard to get. And yet, she is excellent at math, and yet she doesn't feel like she has what it would take to become a researcher. So in her words, she said, I'm really good at math. I'm really serious, I work hard, and I understand things quickly because I often work on the material in advance with my mom, who's a math teacher. The problem is that to become a researcher, you cannot be afraid of not understanding or not succeeding. And that's a bit hard for me because I don't believe in myself at all, and I couldn't do it. This kind of testimony is something that came back again and again amongst the girls that we interviewed. We had so many similar way of putting things. Girls saying, I have a lot of confidence problem. I'm extremely anxious. I'm very stressed. I'm very apprehensive. I have difficulties believing in myself. So we confirm that indeed, if you ask girls, then they do seem to lack self-confidence. This is a result that is also confirmed in quantitative studies, and we well know that girls are less confident and express less confidence in their math skills. So for instance, this is at 15, the difference between girls and boys' attitude toward their self-representation toward mathematics. And so this in red is I'm not good at math. And you can see that girls in orange declare more than boys that they are not good at math. And they declare way less than boys that they are very good, that they succeed in mathematics for a long time. So this is I'm not good, this is I've got good grades, this is I'm a fast learner. Boys declare way more than girls that they are fast learner. This is I've always succeeded in math, and I understand even when it gets hard and difficult. And this is another interesting way to sum up the issue, is that with equivalent grades, girls say way less than boys that they are good. Girls need to be in the top 10%, this is here, to say as much as boys that they are good at mathematics. So they need really to be in the top 10% to allow themselves to declare that they are indeed good at math. So the qualitative research really confirms these quantitative results. So these findings, qualitative and quantitative findings, seem to provide a ready-made explanation for the absence of girls in mathematics, the lack of confidence and what we call in France self-censorship, l'autocensure. This is something that comes back all the time. For instance, in the media, we have the discourse of self-doubt and self-censorship. So these are press example from French media. Here you have stereotypes and self-censorship, why few girls see themselves working in tech, and this is girls often self-censor themselves. This is coming back all the time. And girls hear this discourse, they hear this talk, and then they appropriate it and they say it themselves. So we heard many examples of that, like girls saying, well, women are afraid of going forward. Women are afraid of daring and of going into science. They also say that it's not the boys' fault, it's ingrained in girls. They are the one with prejudice. And finally, they said that it's women who put up a lot of barriers for themselves, women who say, I don't understand, I will give up, and it's a shame. So we have this widely used discourse, and girls take it up for themselves, and themselves are assuming and are blaming girls and women for this issue of self-confidence. But the real question here is, how do they lose confidence, and how do they come to believe that they don't have the skills and they don't have what it takes to go into math and science? And the thing is, they really don't understand what happens. Here you have the example of Lou and Ségolène, both extremely good students, both from very privileged families. One as a math teacher for a father, a philosophy teacher for a mother. The other is the daughter of an engineer and a biology teacher. And Lou says, I put myself down a lot, and I tell myself, you've got no legitimacy. Why are you doing this? It's a weird thing. I have this tendency to crumble before men. Yet my parents are very caring. They make sure that me and my brother are treated equally. My mother is completely independent. She's an incredible role model. I know it's been put in my head somehow, but I don't know how. And Ségolène says a very similar thing. For as long as I can remember, I've always lacked self-confidence. I don't know why. I don't understand what happened, how I became like that. It's easy to know that you should be more confident. For me, it's even more frustrating. I know I should be, but I cannot seem to break free. These are typical of a kind of incomprehension that we found in girls. Like, I don't trust myself, I lack self-confidence, but I don't know why, because everybody around me is nice. My parents are very caring and loving. My teachers try to encourage me. This is me, I'm the problem, they end up saying. They end up saying things like, I'm a perfectionist. I put too much pressure on myself. I am hypersensitive. I'm not mentally strong enough. And so they blame themselves and end up also feeling very confused and in this very difficult state. So this is to be put in comparison with a result we got when we asked them if they experienced any sexism or if they witnessed sexism. And here we had very interesting results. When we asked the questions, have you experienced any sexism? Most answers were, no, I don't think so. I often hear comments, but it's ironic. No, it doesn't come to mind. Comments, jokes. No, honestly, I hear jokes, but not so much. Or it's usually fine, small episodes. This we got for almost all the girls we interviewed. And then we asked follow-up questions. What about in class? What about your teachers? What about, have you ever heard this or that? And then the result we got was that in 45 interviews, we got more than 45 examples of blatant sexism coming from all parts of the girls' surrounding. These are a few examples. Stay inside and let the boys play outside. It's a good thing we also add a boy. I'm a man, it's normal for me to look at girls' asses. Please calm down with your feminism. Fold his laundry, he doesn't know how to do it. You're a girl, you should help him. Quotes in white come from the immediate family, parents, grandparents, etc. You got a better grade than me, but you're a girl, so that doesn't count. Do you need help in math class? I didn't think you were smart after she had a good grade. You don't look like someone who would be good at math. What are you doing here? This is a serious math competition. How did you beat me? Who helped you? I don't need a math camp to reassure myself. These are all coming from boys and the students they are in class with. And finally, avoid dressing like a slut. Are you sure you did it yourself? Women don't belong in every field. Your red nail polish looks a little bit slutty. And girls, if you're struggling, it's normal. You're less capable than boys of solving the problem. Can you guess who said that? Teachers. Family, boys in the classroom, teachers. Sexism is coming from everywhere for this girl. Everywhere, all the time, for all of them. This to be put in perspective with the global figures that we know. And we know that 80% of high school girls receive sexist insults versus 2% of boys. We know that 10% of them experience inappropriate sexual behavior, when they are in high schools. We know that 10% of female engineering students have been sexually assaulted. We know, and this is an always terrible figure, that 1 in 4 female students in prestigious scientific school has been sexually assaulted. Then half of female researchers have experienced sexual harassment, and that 60% of women in tech face sexual harassment as well. So there is this violence coming from everywhere for these girls and then for women in science, and the thing is, the more they get into science, the harder it gets, and the violence just gets stronger and more prevalent. So I think here we have a pretty good explanation of maybe the reason why they lose confidence and the reason why they don't think that they can do it. But the thing is that this violence is always denied, especially by the adults that surround the girls when they are in school. It's called jokes. It's boys will be boys. It's just joking. It doesn't mean it. It's just one thing. It's not that bad. All this discourse surrounding violence leads to this denial. And then girls are really deprived of the tools and the means that they need to identify, name, and describe gender-based violence. They're also deprived of all the scientific knowledge that could help them understand what's going on. For instance, the erasure of women in science history leads to this gap in history that impede them from understanding what's going on. And at the same time, the fact that they are deprived of sociological understanding of what's going on leads to the fact that they don't have any spaces and they don't have any tools to name and understand what's being done to them and to fight back against it. This is a quote from a girl, interiorized misogyny is a no-no. So, in the end, and this is a kind of conclusion, I think the key message from this study that should be very carried out is that girls in math don't censor themselves, and this is still widely used, this expression. They are censored, and that's pretty different. They are not victims of stereotypes, kind of disembodied stereotypes. They are really victims of recurrent sexist violence, and they do not lack self-confidence. They are actively deprived of their confidence by the constant denial of their abilities. And there this is the illustrated process. It was hard for me to translate the drawing, so I put the English below. So this is what happens. First, you've got the gender-based violence. Comments like, girls are weak, math is not for you, girls are not as smart as girls. Then, obviously, it's easy to understand how this gets girls to feel very incompetent, thinking, I'm terrible, I'm not good enough. And it doesn't stop there, because what happens next is the denial of violence with things like, it's not that bad, it doesn't really mean it, or it's just a joke. And then it's like a double violence against girls, this denial of what's happening to them. Because they have the violence, but are being told that they live in an egalitarian society where there is no issue, it drives them a little bit crazy, and it ends up with this feeling that I'm the problem, I'm the one with mental issues, I'm the one being paranoid and maybe a little bit hysterics, and this is encouraged also by discourse. And then you have the guilt. So this is the vicious cycle in which they are trapped, and what's going on and what's happening to them. A few key references of a few studies I quoted, especially for the quantitative research. I can show you this back. And to close up, so everything I've said today is published with the answers to all the other questions I didn't go into today. If you happen to read French, the book is called Matheuses, Math Girls, and girls are the futures of mathematics. I worked with Claire Marc, who did the illustrations, and we also worked with a mathematician, Olga Paris-Romaskevich, and she contributed math problems. So you have sociology, and then you have math problems, so you can understand when you're a girl, you can understand what's going on, and then go and do math for yourself. And thank you very much.
We have a few minutes for questions. Yes.
Non, je voudrais quand même rajouter que, en fait, c'est depuis qu'elles sont pratiquement bébés que les petites filles entendent que les sciences, c'est pas pour moi, les maths, c'est pas pour moi. Dès l'école maternelle, on leur dit, c'est absolument terrible. Donc après, que ce soit une espèce de poids invraisemblable, ça dure depuis des années, quoi. Merci. En France, hein. Je sais pas ailleurs.
So I had one about self-confidence, because in my field, experimental economics, someone who's underconfident, typically we would measure, we would ask, we would elicit what do you think of your performance, and then just do a comparison with your actual performance.
Yes.
So if I think I'm below average, below the median, and I'm actually not, I'm underconfident. Here, you, and maybe there's some hope, I don't know what you think about that, but you seem to say those girls, they are aware that they are underconfident.
Yes.
They say, I'm underconfident. So to some extent, it's not, I think, as bad as saying I'm really bad at math. It's saying, okay, maybe I'm not that bad, but I'm missing something.
I'm not sure. I think it's an issue. I think it's the consequence of the language we've been putting out there as scientists. I think we've been explaining the issue with girls in science as an issue of lack of confidence and lack of self-confidence, and this has gone into the teachers have been saying it, and now the girls are saying it. Yeah, it's not as bad as saying that they are so bad at math, but how could they? They get excellent grades.
Right.
But then it provides a way to still explain why they are not made for that. So I think this is interesting, the consequence of the language we've been using in science, and not only us, but also the way it's been translated in the media and then translated, for instance, in teacher training and everything. But it doesn't help them that much to have this I like self-confidence discourse, because it doesn't fit. So you've got some contradictory data in front of you. I'm good, but I'm not confident. And then the problem goes back to individual psychological issues. So I think I wouldn't be that optimistic. I think, yeah, this may provide, again, bring us further from the real explanation and the real cause, and provide kind of like a scarecrow girls like self-confidence.
Yeah, it's not a question. I just want to add on it. I think this is super interesting, and I think it goes even beyond that. It's actually worse. I mean, I'm from economics, and the discourse is always, how can we change the women? So we're looking at gender differences and then say, oh, they're not that competitive, they don't negotiate that hard, they don't take risks. So how do we change them? And we constantly tell them they're wrong. And I mean, what you have shown very clearly, it's not them who are wrong.
Yes.
So as long as we stay within that discourse, we're never gonna change a thing.
We should work on the first part. We should work on that. This is what should disappear for it to stop.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Clémence. And our next speaker is Charlotte Raglet-Asante. For some reason, I cannot. Can you see your presentation? Okay, it's weird. It's IDAS. If I cannot find it, because it's supposed to be here, I think. Maybe behind. Oh, probably here. Your aim is this one. Sure. Perfect.
The title, I think that's okay. I will speak to what is here.
You will stick to what is here?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
So I focus on that.
So next speaker is Charlotte Raglet-Asante. And she represents career aspirations of male and female students studying science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, STEM for short, subjects in the Ghanaian University. So Charlotte, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Maripel, and good morning to everyone, and greetings from Ghana. I'm Charlotte Raglet-Asante. I'm a human geographer, but my field of research is on gender issues, gender and development issues. And I'm happy to be here and happy to be invited by the Women in Science to participate in this conference. So this project is one of the projects that the Women in Science supported in 2019. So I'm going to focus on that. We've already published 2 papers from this. I did this work with my colleague, which I'll talk about later on. He's an economist. So we did a lot of analysis, but I'm more of a qualitative person. So I'm going to tell the story today. And then if you want to know more about what we did, the publications are there. They are both online, and you can just go there and download and read. So as a form of introduction, the literature highlights, I think the previous speaker talked about that science disciplines mainly be in the domain of men, and the humanities perceived to be that of women or females. And several factors explains that. And one of the key factors is some of the socio-cultural factors, the norms, the perceptions, the stereotypes that we have, that science is for men and not for women. But in Ghana, so I'm focusing on Ghana, there have been several policies and programs over the years to encourage females to move into science fields and science-oriented disciplines and programs. If you look at the trend, and just brought this just to understand the context, in terms of enrollment into science programs by our National Accreditation Authority, you realize there's been steady progress over the years. I don't have the recent figures, but we did this work some few years back. In terms of trying to encourage females to move into science fields, in terms of science, engineering, mathematics fields. And so increasingly, we are getting more females into science programs in Ghanaian universities, including my university. And this is as a result of policies, national level policies that have been put in place to encourage more girls to move into what we call the STEM fields. So for instance, our Ghana Education Service have instituted science clinics They started as way back as the early 2000s. I think the previous speaker talked about sending girls into math camps and things, and we've been doing that over the years, just to motivate the girls, encourage girls, so that they will be interested in taking up science clinics. Girls in the lower levels, the basic school and high school. So it's kind of a summer camp for girls. And we've been doing that over the years at the national level. They have instituted girls' education units within the Ministry of Education. And so every region has a girls' unit, just to work towards non-discriminatory enrollment in education in general in terms of females, and also reducing gender disparities in education, particularly in science fields. In the tertiary institutions, we have had several policies to increase female enrollment generally, and then in science fields. So if you take my university, University of Ghana, for instance, in terms of total population, we are almost at par, 50-50, 50% males, 50% female. In fact, in law, we have more females than males in law as we speak. But engineering is still a problem. We still have more males than females. So we are trying to look at all of these and bridge the gaps, because policies have been put in place to make sure we bridge those gaps. Increasingly, we are also getting private-public partnership to encourage more females into STEM fields through mentorship programs. And even in more recent times, as we speak, our Minister for Education is trying to set up science schools only for girls. Only for girls. We just started last year, this year. And so maybe in the next few years, we'll just have to look at the impact. So all of these programs and policies are ongoing, but there are still stereotypes that still exist. People still think that science is not for girls, and we want to look at some of these things. So we tried, before we did the work, we tried to look at the literature. Of course, a lot of work have been done in the developed world, but not so much in the developing world, particularly in our context. So we conceptualized this. There are several factors that impact on the ability of females in particular to choose a STEM program. Gender is one, whether male, female. There's also race, there's class, self-interest, self-efficacy. Pre-tertiary and college experience also influences one's ability to choose that. And then the issue of role model, and then the policies and programs. And underlying all of these, the sociocultural factors. So we looked at all this whole literature, and that guided our project that the Women in Science Chair supported. So for the overall project, we wanted to understand some of the social, cultural, economic, and political factors that influence female choice of science-oriented disciplines, and whether these are different from that of their male counterparts. We also looked at the performance level and compared to that of males, whether they are doing better, the males are doing better as compared to females, even from their own perspective. And then we looked at the career aspirations, whether they would want to pursue that, and if they want to pursue that, which fields would they want to pursue, and why. And we compared that to that of males. So these are some of the issues that we looked at in our project, but I can't focus on all of these. I'm just going to focus on just an aspect. So in terms of methodology, this was a time that COVID hit all of us, so it was extremely, extremely difficult. But we managed, we had already signed the contract, so we had to just use an online survey. Fortunately, we had 252 students from the university who took part in the survey. 53% male, 47% female, all in science-oriented fields, either engineering, biological science, computer science, and mathematics, statistics, and natural sciences. But we managed, when the lockdowns and things were a bit relaxed, we managed to conduct in-depth interview. I'm a qualitative person, wanted to understand the nuances in all of these. and then some focus group discussions. And that gave us more insights into their career options, their aspirations, and the factors influencing all of these options that they have selected. And so I'm going to focus more on some of these qualitative interviews. So just a background characteristics of the respondents, many very young people below, between 20, 25 years, the majority of them. Again, majority also lived with both parents, some with fathers only. What was interesting, with some of them lived with their mothers only, and we found, because the literature also highlights how mothers can also influence their children. And so we're interested in that. And we realized that about 22% of them said they lived with their mothers only, and we went ahead to find out how their mothers have influenced their lives. Others lived alone, and then whether they also went to a single-sex school or a mixed school, that can also impact on one's choices in STEM. So we looked at all of these things. And then in terms of the courses that they did, you realize that we found that the majority of females, you find them in the biological sciences. So there are more females in the biological sciences as compared to males. And then there are more males in the engineering area. And I mean, these are the samples, the people that we sample. But in reality, you find more males in engineering as compared to females. And then also in mathematical sciences. The mathematical sciences is mathematics, actuarial science, computer science, and those things. You find more males in there as compared to females. But these are the people that took part in the survey. So what are some of the things that we found? One of the key things or reasons why they are studying science or opted to study science is their pre-tertiary experience. And most of them highlighted the fact that they had very good science foundation in terms of the schools. Of course, back home in Ghana, we have different categories of schools, the very good schools, and and in fact, most people who enter the university are also from the so-called grade A schools, schools with excellent science teachers. And even before that, the participation in science clinics and fairs that is being organized at the national level really impacts on one's interest in science, particularly for girls. And so, for instance, this third-year biological science female student said, we had very good science teachers in our school who motivated us. So, on contrary to the first, presenter, in our part of the world, teachers play a major role, because at the national level, there's been a lot of orientation and programs, sensitization programs, that we should encourage girls to pursue science. So teachers play a major role, and teachers are trained to encourage girls to and motivate girls to take up science programs and science courses at the higher level. So we had very good science teachers in our schools who motivated us, took us on excursions to some industries to interact with female scientists, and that really boosted my interest in science. So that experience is one of the major factors that encourages females to pursue science at a higher level. But of course, there are also individual factors, the self-interest that applies to both males and females. The desire to pursue a career in science field, it came up. For many of them, they said they want to challenge themselves. Science is quite a challenging program, but I want to take up that challenge. And some of the girls said they want to challenge the status quo of fewer women in science fields. They want to challenge that. They want to pursue science because of several other factors. Their experience back in school, and then even at home. So, for instance, this girl said, girls usually choose general arts and business whilst in school. But I want to act as a role model for the younger females in my area to let them know that science programs are not just for males, but can also be done by females. And this is one lady who has over the years participated in some of these science clinics and excursions and things. So she wants to pursue science to the higher level to prove to others that yes, women can also pursue sciences. But another major factor that came up was the economic prospects. That many of them said, especially the males, that if you pursue science or science programs or science careers, you earn more income and you get more money from that. And that was one of the major factors that the men or the males, gave us a major reason why they are pursuing science. The males were more likely than females to consider economic considerations in addition to their interests. So I really like mathematics and engineering. And back in high school, our teachers also urged us to take these subjects seriously because of the opportunities in this area. And that one will earn more money. That's why I'm currently doing engineering. I want to be an engineer, and I know I will make a lot of money in this field. So for most of the males, and that was not the only female who said that, for most of the males, it looked like for them, science is something that they could do so they can earn more of a much better career than being in the humanities. But for the females, it's rather their experience, the personal experience that they had. They want to challenge some of the status quo. And the issue of role models, it also came up strongly. They were more likely to be impacted by role models, and mothers played a significant role, especially mothers with secondary education in females' choice of STEM. And this is in line with some of the literature. The mothers can really play a major role in the lives of their girls. So my mother is a teacher and has been instrumental in my life, in my pursuit of science, right from childhood when I expressed interest. And she assisted me, supported me, and I can say she has been my main motivator. And I want to pursue medicine, and she has encouraged me to study hard and achieve my dreams. So it's very, very important, the issue of role model, be it a teacher, be it a parents, especially mothers, we can really influence our children and encourage them, particularly female children, to pursue that. We look at their perceived academic performance, whether they are doing well or not doing well, and it appears that more of the females said they are improving rather than even the male. The males, and there are several reasons, but I'm not going to go into that. We've already published the data. In terms of their future career, whether we ask them whether their future career will be along the STEM, because people just move and then along the line they drop. So wanted to find out, but majority said yes, they will still want to pursue a career in STEM. And we went ahead to ask them the specific careers that they would like to pursue. Of course, some want to stay in engineering, either move on to medicine or ICT, academia, and so on and so forth. But what we found was a majority, particularly for the girls, they were still not decided. They were still not sure whether they would pursue STEM. They are studying science, all right, but they are not sure whether they will pursue a career. So we found out that several reasons, the focus group and in-depth interviews gave us more insight into that why were they undecided? One, economic challenges, because many of them felt that you need further studies and you need the resources. Their parents may not be able to support them to pursue further studies. They would want to move into another area, STEM. So they may be doing engineering, but they may move into something else. And then there are uncertainties in the job market. I mean, people are not sure that I'm doing engineering. Will I find a job in engineering? Because currently we have many people with science background now working in the banks and insurance companies, and all of that. And also the issue of unemployment and securing job after school. So these some of the reasons why they are still not sure whether they will stay in STEM or move out of STEM. So this is something that we need to flag. So for instance, I'll just read one of them. My immediate goal after school is to look for a job and then before continuing my education, it's not easy to get a job because there's so much competition. I know some who did engineering that have decided to end up as accountant, bankers, and so on and so forth. So these are all challenges that people are going through. So they are still not sure whether they will pursue and that. So in terms of some major conclusions, we realize that several factors influences one's decision to be in STEM. There are individual level factors, pre-tertiary experience, sociocultural or role model, the issue of role model, particularly for females. Their pre-tertiary experience, and then the issue of role model is very, very important. Somebody to be their role model, somebody to try and encourage them, and then you know, the stereotypes that exist, try to, you know, erase some of these stereotypes. Is very, very important for girls. And then the economic prospect, which more males or males more likely to consider that all of these can influence one's ability to pursue a career in STEM. So whilst the literature highlights that there is limited females' interest in science-oriented disciplines, we realize that there's rather high enthusiasm among young females to pursue STEM courses and careers. As a result of our programs, the government programs, the policies and initiatives that are ongoing, at least in my country, Ghana. And then the issue of role model is also very, very important, including teachers and parents, especially mothers. And so we concluded that if females are encouraged and motivated at school and at home, they can do well in STEM-oriented or related fields, of courses, at all levels, educational ladder, and could also pursue career aspirations as compared to their male counterparts. But we should remember that there are still uncertainties. The uncertainties in the job market, the unemployment, economic constraints in the home. There could be barriers for them to pursue, or females to pursue STEM fields or stay within STEM fields. And so, as a way of some policy recommendations, we need continuous sensitization of all stakeholders, including parents and teachers, to address the stereotypes of women in science. It's very, very important. More programs to motivate females at a very early stage, right from the basic. We shouldn't wait to even high school, right from the basic. Encourage girls that you can do it, you'll be able to pursue that. And we think that once we do that, it will, you know, motivate them to move into science. So we need more science-related also mentorship programs, particularly for females. And maybe look beyond mentorship and advocate for policies. Policies geared towards recruit. If we want them to stay in STEM, at least from our perspective, we need to get policies geared towards recruiting females into STEM fields. Can we have quotas, for instance, especially the engineering firms and institutions after school, so they are sure that they can be recruited into a particular firm, and so that will let them stay in it. Can we have scholarship schemes, scholarship secretariat to provide quotas, so those who want to pursue higher education, so we are sure that, or they are assured that they can pursue that at a higher level. Maybe our women's rights organizations can collaborate with, and the wine represent women in engineering. I think it's an association, so that we can advocate to get more females to pursue programs and fields like engineering. What we realized is that our sample size was, I mean, we cannot generalize. It just gave us more insights. So we need further research and a larger number of students at different educational levels and institutions to ascertain clear gender differences within different STEM disciplines. So for instance, within only engineering, within biological sciences, within mathematics, computer science. So we need to do all of these research to give us more insights. Another thing that we also need to do moving forward is that longitudinal study to track students studying STEM courses whether they will stay in STEM. Maybe after 10 years after school, can we track to find out whether they are still within STEM, especially females? And that is, we are more likely to generate more knowledge on the actual impact of science education and programs on females' interest in pursuing careers in STEM. Currently, some colleagues and I, we are looking at women in STEM, whether they are able to move up the education, the leadership ladder. These are all areas that we need to do that. So fortunately, we've been able to publish 2 papers from this project. These are all online. You can just go online. The Ghana Journal of Geography is African Journals online. You can go, it's open access. You can go and download. And then the other one in Essence Social Science, that is also there. You can just go there and download. So I did this work with my colleague, Prof. Charles Aka, and we were supported by Louise. Charles is an economist, so we've done a lot of some analysis in the papers. So you can just go there and have a look at that and read more about what I've just presented. And we are very grateful to the Women in Science Chair for supporting this project. So thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Charlotte. We have time for some questions.
Thank you. I was wondering if you have anything about the effect of the single-sex schools. Do you see something when it comes to science participation? And also, if you know a little bit more about the impact of the family background and the role model, and especially, do you see with your data a link between parents, especially mother, in teaching and science? Or so is there a link between the occupation of parents and especially mother and the students?
Okay, so let me start with that. There was a link between mothers and the impact on girls. But it's mothers with some kind of education, at least secondary education, have a significant impact on girls who want to pursue science. And of course, so we concluded that because of the mother's educational background, may have had that impact on the girls. And then the other one is, yes, there's also a link between the school that whether it's single-sex school or because the single-sex schools, so those who went to all girls schools pursue science. In fact, the top girls school in our country, you find many of them moving into medical school. In fact, I understand there was a particular year that half of the girls in the class is from that particular school. Because special attention is given to those girls, you know, rather than those who went to the co-ed or mixed schools. There's kind of divided attention in those schools. So even the boys have started complaining that more attention is given to girls as compared to the boys. So the school that you go also has an impact. And preferably an all-girls school, they give preference to, because of the national policy. You know, there's a national policy of encouraging girls to pursue science. And our current minister is crazy about STEM. Now he has even set up STEM schools only for girls. So all girls and all science school, just to get more girls to pursue STEM careers. So that has, well, we haven't assessed that yet, but we believe that maybe in the next 5 years, we'll be able to do some studies. Yeah. Does that answer you? Yeah. Thanks very much. Yeah.
I have a question about your very good teachers you talked about.
Yeah.
So how do you get very good teachers? Because so what we see in Germany is that people who are bad at STEM select into the teaching profession, especially for basic school. That's really a field where people go who don't like STEM fields. But even at the higher level, it's like, so if you are good at STEM, you end up in engineering, technology, whatever. And if you're like intermediate, you end up in teaching. So how do you get the good people into teaching?
I think the other way around in our country. I mean, the so-called or perceived excellent people are those who move into science and teach science. Yeah. And then the humanities is perceived as those who are not too good or whatever. But again, I think that is also that national level policy that we have. And so teachers are trained, they go for a lot of sensitization programs to to encourage girls to pursue science. So well, maybe not all teachers are good, but I think we find a majority of teachers who would want to encourage. In fact, during the focus group discussions, some of the boys even complain that teachers give more attention to girls as compared to boys. Again, I think it's also the perception that boys do better in science, so leave them to study science. But girls, we need to encourage the girls. So they pay more attention to girls as compared to boys. At least that is a perspective that we got from the two. What we didn't do is also to interact with teachers. Maybe we may have to interact with teachers to find out what the teachers think. But generally, from what they said, it looks like teachers really motivate them back in the high school to pursue sciences. So the perception is that, or the conclusion is that they have good teachers who motivate them to do that. In fact, we have some teachers who now and then bring students to the university campuses, students from high school and even some basic school, just to go around, to have a feel of what happens in the university and all of that. So we will conclude that we have good teachers, But again, I think that one is because we have that national policy, and two, it depends on the school anyway, But most teachers, particularly in all girls schools, really do encourage girls to pursue to higher levels. My time is up. So if anybody has any more questions, I'll be more than willing to answer.
Will the slides be available?
Oh, yes.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to make a comment because I've been working, I listened to you, to your talk earlier this year or last year. I listened to your talk already. Online, yeah.
Project.
Okay.
Women,
Okay.
Women in STEM leadership.
Yes. But we had a global project, a global survey about women and men in STEM, and this is a global gender gap project. So I don't know if we'll talk more about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
So thanks a lot again, Charlotte. Our next speaker is Christiane. So Christiane Schwieren will now present Do Women Over-Prepare? An experimental analysis. The floor is yours, Christiane.
Well, thank you. And I'm now moving to a very different way of doing research. So I'm a behavioral economist and psychologist, and this is an experimental study. So we're moving from more qualitative to quant and experiment. And this is joint work with Cosima, who is here, and Umberto Javador from Pompeo Fabra. And even though I don't have it on my slides, we are also very thankful to the foundation, of course, to fund this. And I have work in progress on that slide because just like the speaker before me, Charlotte, we ended up in the middle of COVID and when we wanted to start that, and so it's not completely finished at the moment. So, well, I don't have to tell you that there are not as many women than men in STEM careers, but what I want to stress a little bit when talking about the motivation is that behavioral economics, which is our field, very much focuses on a very specific kind of reasons why this might be the case. And these are, as I said in my comment to your talk, very much factors in the preferences of women, like gender differences in competitive behavior, gender differences in performance in competitive environments, always women being less inclined to compete, being less inclined to increase their performance when they are in a competitive environment, but then also gender differences in risk preferences, women being less risk-seeking than men. Some gender differences in social preferences, this is less clear. But then also, of course, differences in selection of fields, less math-intensive careers, personal factors, social factors, and this is where we are aiming at now a little bit, the gender confidence gap, or the so-called imposter phenomenon that is stronger in women than in men, has been shown in a lot of literature. There's anecdotal evidence that women apply to jobs only when they fulfill 100% of the conditions, while men apply at 60%. There is a partial rejection of this in a recent paper by Nick and colleagues, pointing to women perceiving their qualification differently and their preparedness differently, and that's where we started our thoughts and developed our design. So if women do not enter competitive settings as much as men do, and they somehow seem to perceive their preparedness differently, would they then actually over-prepare in a competitive setting? And there has not been, when we started to think about this, we had in mind a situation where a woman and a man have to enter whatever type of competition for a job, presenting something, and the image was of a man just preparing up to the level where he's good at it and then goes into the competition, and the women overdoing it and preparing again and again and again. And the anecdotal perspective, this is very simple to imagine. But then we figured there's not so much literature about that, and also it's not so easy to study that actually, because you have to very clearly define over preparation. Of course, that aligns with all the literature of risk aversion, confidence levels, but it's slightly different than being just underconfident, because it has a high opportunity cost. So if you prepare more, that affects your work-life balance, that affects your well-being basically, that affects your pursuit of opportunities if you know that you will prepare much more than basically your male counterpart. And it would mean different interventions than simple risk attitudes might lead to. So the problem we faced actually was in designing the task. So how can we distinguish between a necessary preparation and over-preparation? In the anecdotal thing, it's very easy, but then make this very clear in an experimental setting that people just don't prepare more, but rightly so, but do actually over-prepare. So we needed a task where practice is observable and leads to learning, because otherwise preparing makes no sense if you cannot learn. Our participants had to decide whether to practice more or less. And there should be a clear definition when something is over-preparation. And ideally it should be a gender-neutral task, do not add any advantage to any of the sides from the beginning. So what we came up with is a task where subjects had to learn a path on a map with 22 different street intersections, and only one out of 3 exits is correct. This looks like that. So we have crossroads, and these crossroads have a symbol, like a church in this case, and this symbol is linked to the correct decision. So whenever there is a church, it's correct to turn left. In the experiment, participants saw a video first with 25 of these things. It just went on like learning a map without pause. And after that, they could learn, they could practice. And actually, they could practice as much as they wanted in our first experiment. So they saw the same 25 crossroads, like on the black picture here. And then they could choose, and they got immediate feedback. So if they chose like going up with the church, they would see that it's wrong. If they went left with the church, they would see that it's correct. And they could do this as long as they wanted, and then at some point move on to do the test. So to make these opportunity costs somehow reasonable, because I mean you're sitting in an experiment, you're practicing, so I mean you can also without any big cost keep practicing. We made them pay for practice rounds, and maybe for those who are not into economic experiments, what usually is done in economic experiments is that participants come to the lab and then they do some kind of task, and they get paid based on their performance in that task. So they will go out with an amount of money that is related actually to how well they performed. And they got an initial endowment of €4, but then for each practice round, they had to pay 10 cents. So actually practicing would reduce their overall earnings unless it actually increased their probability to finally complete the task well in a sufficient way, because once they had to perform the tasks, if they did it well, if they did it well, they earned a high amount. If they did it less well, they earned a low amount. So if they did the task well, they got 10 or €7 depending on our treatment. If they failed, they got nothing. So except for the €4 they got in the beginning. So think of it, if you get the €4, then you practice forever, and then you fail, you go out with nothing. But if you get the €4, practice as much as you need to succeed, and then pass the task, you get what is left over from the €4 plus your €10 for passing the task. So in the test, they saw the same 25 crossroads in a different order. They didn't get any feedback, and they performed the task, and then we asked them about their self-assessment. So do you think you've done well in that task, basically? We asked them also some demographics. We asked them also some questions about to elicit risk attitudes, time preferences, etc. I told you about the payment already, so let's move on. We had two different types of treatments. One was our base treatment. That was what I explained right now. So they had to pass, once they passed the test and they didn't make any mistakes, they received €10 minus plus what was left over from the €4 in the beginning. If they failed, they didn't get anything for the test. And then we had a different setting where we wanted to see, okay, what would men and women do actually? Would they want to go into this highly competitive, very difficult thing, or would they actually choose an easier version where they could make more mistakes? So this is kind of a confidence test. So if they choose difficult, it's exactly like in the baseline. But if they choose easy, they can make up to 2 mistakes and still pass the test, but then they get considerably lower amount of money for passing the test. So how do we measure over-preparation now? And that's where I always need Cosima's help, because this is somehow complicated to explain. So we look at the green line. We have the first round, then we have a number of practice rounds, then we have the last round, and that their number of practice rounds. What we're looking at now is there is this required score level where they would pass the test, and we look basically at how many practice rounds do they do above the threshold where they have their where they have enough correct solutions, basically. So they practice, they get 0 mistakes in the baseline, and how much do they practice on after that? And that's for this setting what we call over preparation, right? Good. So this is our current state sample, and you see that it's not very balanced, and the reason for that is basically that it's hard to get these people. So somehow since COVID, so I mean I've been running experiments for a very long time, and before COVID it was always easy to get participants to come to experiments. Somehow after COVID that got more difficult, and this is something you cannot do online. You have to do it presentially, because online you don't know what they do. They draw nice graphics with the symbols and everything, and then they just, I mean, we had a couple of people even doing this in the lab, so you can't do it online, and it's very difficult to get people into the lab. So it's still unbalanced. We're still hoping to get a little bit better balance here in the cells. So reflecting very much Charlotte's situation, our STEM women are in biology. So we have defined STEM as all what is generally defined as STEM, but we have more women in the bio fields and more men in the engineering fields. Our non-STEM comparison group is economics. Why is that? We didn't want to have a confound with math ability required, right? So it's non-STEM econ, but at least in Spain where we did this study, econ requires math abilities as well. So it's both math intensive, but one is social science and the other is STEM. So let's have a look first at confidence, and this is our selection in the difficult task. And well, we basically replicate what has been done in many studies or shown in many studies before. We have more men selecting into the difficult task, but this holds especially for the non-STEM. So in STEM, actually, women who choose to do STEM are also less underconfident than women who do not do STEM. So the difference here is still significant, but clearly smaller between men and women. This is for the skill. It's more or less equal. Men are a little bit better, but it's more or less equal. And also the progress is more or less equal. Now let's look at the test passing. I have regressions if you want to see them. I just thought it's easier, as this is not a behavioral economics conference, to just show you the graphs and not come with the regressions, but if you want to see them, we have the regressions. So let's look at who passes the test. So in STEM, it's clearly, there is a gender difference. In non-STEM, actually not. So men and women in non-STEM are equally probable to pass the test. But look carefully at the y-axis. Nearly everybody passes the test anyway. So it's 95% in non-STEM for both men and women, and it's close to 99 actually in STEM for men. So there is a slight advantage in STEM for men, but basically participants who practice pass the task. Just to give you the risk-taking, that is one of our main control variables. And we do replicate the standard finding on risk-taking that men are more risk-seeking than women. And this holds both for STEM and non-STEM, even though in STEM it's actually weaker. In non-STEM it's weaker. Men are not that risk-taking. Men tend towards risk neutrality in STEM, while they're in non-STEM, while they're actually risk-seeking in STEM, and women are always risk-averse. So now, finally, the variable of interest, the over-preparation. And here comes the thing we did not expect. Men prepare more, and over-prepare more according to the definition we have set up, that is, practice rounds above reaching the threshold. And this holds both for STEM and non-STEM, and is stronger in non-STEM actually. So STEM women prepare more than non-STEM women, but still less than STEM men. So this was a puzzle for us. So we were very confident about our hypothesis that women would over-prepare. And now we got this data, and then we started thinking, okay, where does this come from? What is going on here? Are we missing something, or are we just wrong with our hypothesis? And so we went on to a new data collection. Because we presented this a couple of times, and people, and I always ask the audience, so what are we missing? What is going on here? And the comment we always got is, well, is it rational actually to over-prepare? So does it actually really increase your probability of winning? So men would be actually more rational than women because they over-prepare after reaching the threshold, but it also increases their probability of winning, and that is important. Think of the earnings. So we decided, okay, let's do a new treatment where we force them to over-prepare, basically, to establish the learning curve and the rationality of this over-preparation. So what do? They, like before, they do self-chosen practice until 0 mistakes are reached, as we did it before. But then at that point, we tell them, now you have to do 5 more practice rounds. And each additional correct round gives you 10 cents. Why did we do that? Because we were fearing that people would say, okay, I know how to do this. Why should I bother putting any effort in this additional practice round? I just go over it quickly and go to the test. And that would then not allow us to establish the learning curve, because people might make a lot of mistakes in these 5 rounds just because they are not taking them seriously. So we incentivized it with this extra payment. So people were really pushed to do these 5 rounds seriously. I call this here first impression because our sample so far is really small, especially the sample of male and female in STEM. Non-STEM is a little bit better. So what is our first impression? Actually, most people do not make any mistake after reaching 0 once. So it's really the point where people could do the test. Some people make up to 1 mistake after reaching 0 once. But actually what we could establish here, it's really over-preparation. So once you have reached the threshold and you go on practicing, this is over-preparation. So if we look at our learning curve here, you see that basically after 7 practice rounds, people actually don't make many mistakes anymore. And this is not much different for men and women. So men are a little bit slower than women in learning that. But remember, we're not, the graph comparing men and women's over-preparation does not look at absolute number of preparations people make, but after reaching the threshold. So the fact that male reach it a little bit later it doesn't imply this over-preparation. It's always after having reached the threshold. So, well, the learning curve is pretty steep, and after 7 to 9 rounds, everybody is able to do this. And if we now look at this over-preparation thing, you can see that passing in the first additional round is 95%, and the second is 95%, and the third is 98%, and the fourth is 96%, and the fifth is 98%. So it's basically, once you have reached it, you pass the task. And there is no difference here for men and women. Men are a little bit lower, but that's not significant. So actually it's over-preparation for both, and men over-prepare more than women. So to summarize the current status of the project, actually, as in a whole lot of literature before on female underconfidence, the selection into the difficult task up front is higher for men, is higher for STEM, and the gender difference is smaller for STEM. The over-preparation is higher for men, is higher for STEM, and again, also here the gender difference is smaller for STEM. It's clearly real over-preparation, so that is what we established so far. And what we're interested in now is, well, one possible reason might be just that the desire to win a competition is so much stronger in men than in women, that they just go on preparing even though it doesn't help them anymore. So that could be one thing. The other thing is that we see a clear influence of feedback here. And I mean, they know exactly how good they are. And coming back to your presentation, in the real world, I think this is not necessarily the case, and there might actually be a difference for women than for men. That women get sometimes in real world competition this kind of slightly misogynous, distorted feedback. So there are quotas that help women to enter competitions. There are these comments that you had nicely on your slide. So I didn't expect you to do good. So what we want to look at in another step is to give not full feedback and see actually whether women interpret that feedback in a different way. So they enter less if they don't have full feedback. They are less confident if they don't have full feedback, because what is special about our situation here is that they know exactly how good they are. And that's it, and as this is ongoing, I'm very happy, and we're both very happy to hear your comments, ideas, suggestions on how to move on, or what you think, what we missed.
Thanks a lot, Graciana. So any questions, comments?
Thank you. It was a very interesting topic and presentation. I just assume that your results are on top of the controls, so you still find this on top of memory bias, stuff like that. And linking to what you said at the end, maybe you set up a completely gender-neutral experiment, and so maybe there's no need for over-preparation for women in this specific case. So I'm not an expert in this area, so maybe you could try to set up an experiment with more gender-biased arrangements and see if in that case you see differences in over-preparation. And I'm not sure if it's something that might help.
Yeah, I think this is our intuition as well, that we managed to somehow get all the gender bias out, and now we have to slightly get it back in.
Thank you so much. Hearing you, I was wondering if it's that surprising to find out that actually men do prepare. And I was wondering if this idea we have that women over-prepare is not actually a social way to conceal work, training, and preparation that men actually do, and it gives the illusion that their talent is natural, that they don't have to train. It reminded me of what you have in schools, like, you got a super good grade, oh, I didn't do anything, I didn't work at all. And it gives when we do know that nothing comes without training, so there is actual training somewhere. So I was wondering if it's not a way to conceal that and to make women think that they are not natural, for instance, at STEM. And so that your experiments could point out that there is actually something going on, but it's concealed by this stereotype.
That is nice. So that would mean we should look more at what they say also about their preparation afterwards, and add that to the next level, and see how they frame their level of preparation they did actually. Thank you. That's very nice.
Any other question, comment?
Yes, thank you for
As
normal.
well.
Thank you for your presentation. I'm really not an expert on this field, but I asking myself if this is the real desire to win of the fear to lose that drive the fact to over prepare for men. I have this intuition, but maybe I'm totally wrong because I do not really know these literatures, but women are more comfortable at the idea to lose than men, or not to have some failures.
Okay.
And
That's also an interesting point. I have no good idea how to study that or to include that, but it's an interesting point, yes. Thank you.
thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, so if not, thanks a lot, Christiana. And now the floor will be... The floor will now be to Elias.
Hello, everyone. First of all, I want to thank the three first speakers of this morning for these very interesting talks. I want to warmly welcome you at Paris Dauphine and at this international workshop of the Women and Science Chair, which marks the 5th year of the chair's existence. Welcome especially to the speakers who, for some, come from very far away. But let me say a few words about the chair. This Dauphine UNESCO chair aims to mobilize and develop multidisciplinary approaches to analyze the determinants and the impact of the low presence of women in scientific studies and careers, focusing on the determinants, obstacles, and challenges involved in getting more women into scientific studies and careers. Multidisciplinarity is at the heart of our approach, and during this colloque, we will hear presentations by specialists of geography, sociology, economics, education, organizational behavior, gender studies, law and ethics, banking and finance, presentation from 10 leading researchers from academic institutions in Europe, Africa, North America, and Australia. They present the conclusions of 10 research projects that have been selected and supported by the chair through its annual international call for research projects. Since 2019, the chair has received 240 proposals and supported 30 research projects from all around the world, including the previously mentioned regions, as well as South America and Asia. The 30 research projects are in addition to the research projects that are conducted by the chair's team at Dauphine in partnership with l'Institut des Politiques Publiques and the Institut Louis Bachelier. I invite you to explore our website as well as our YouTube channel to discover all our finalized and current projects that address a large set of questions, among which the determinant of the lower representation of women in scientific tracks and careers, the impact of this underrepresentation on the quality of research as well on the research strategic decisions, the impact of not taking gender into account in the design of scientific studies, the career trajectories, career and wage gaps, the evaluation of public policies or experiments and international benchmarks, and so on. I would like to thank all those who have supported us during these 5 years, namely Amundi, L'Oréal Foundation, Generali France, Le Groupe La Poste, Safran, and Talent. Some of the representatives at the highest level, CEO, chairman, so on, will participate to the 2 round tables that will close this full day and will share and discuss their experience with representatives of academia, civil society, public institutions, and political leaders about the general theme of women and science, what progress and what levers for action. Overall, I want to thank Aida Hamdi, who ensures the day-to-day proper functioning of the chair, and Marie-Pierre Darny, who elaborated today's program, a very exciting program. Thank you, Marie-Pierre. Welcome again to all of you, and enjoy the coffee break at the end of the corridor before to enjoy the next presentations. Thanks again.
So coffee break, I think it's supposed to be in A701.
C'est rare qu'il la traite, c'est la seule scientifique et d'habitude.
Bah oui, c'est ça.
C'est très compliqué de la voir.
Elle était disponible hier ou avant-hier.
D'accord.
Merci beaucoup. Non, jusqu'ici tout est parfait. Yes, yes, yes. Let's just put it so we have the No, we're sorry. Yeah, the sound system is broken in the room, which we couldn't really expect. So. C'est un petit défi.
Just follow the color.
Left.
Okay, all right, thank you. So I'm part of a project that is going to start like we won the last war, and by like the administration contacted Aida.
Yeah, that's who you should talk to.
Yes, but she hasn't like because we contacted her on some things on the agreement.
Donc là c'est bon, normalement tu vois il sort pas par la GBI, il sort automatiquement là si je le débranche. Ouais,
So
voilà.
you should take the opportunity that she's here.
Le son il sort bien par là.
So now she exited the room, but you will have the chance for sure.
Okay.
She will have the badge with a name on it. And if I see her and you at the same time, I'll show.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I will go look for her. Thanks.
Yes. I think it's safe enough, yes.
Safe. Faut avoir l'œil quand même.
Ici, ça va.
Ici, il y a moins pas des trucs qui passent, mais il y a eu quand même quelques vols. Non, mais après, il y a un peu
Trop optimiste, et puis peut-être que si je vois qu'il n'y a personne dans la salle, je vais faire.
Là, il y a une vidéo dessus.
Ouais, c'est ça.
Et vous savez où elle est sur l'ordi.
Sinon, il y a...
Une petite enceinte comme ça.
Ouais, super, parce que effectivement, la présentatrice avait l'air d'être très déçue qu'on ne puisse pas, le cas échéant. Ah, est-ce que c'est ça? Ça ressemble à ça? Laboratorium, je sais pas quoi.
Bah, c'est bien, les
Ça n'a pas
micros,
l'air
les gens.
de fonctionner là du tout.
Par contre du coup on n'a aucun moyen de faire en sorte que le retour du micro sorte par les enceintes.
Il n'y a plus que.
Et ok.
On va chercher un micro.
Il y a déjà plus de piles?
Bah, sur celui-là, ça va. Il
Ouais.
reste quoi? Un intervenant, je crois.
Deux pour ce matin.
Est-ce que tu peux y aller, toi?
Ouais, c'est des trucs audiovisuels là au fond.
Audiovisuel, Laurent, tu lui demandes, et si elle sait pas trop, en face, sous la fenêtre, il y a des trucs, et il y a
Ouais,
deux
j'ai vu,
micros
il y a
pour
plein
la
de-
709. Il y en
Ah,
a
ok.
deux spécialement, il y en a quatre, donc on en a déjà pris deux.
Donc
Celui-là,
le
tu
même
peux,
type quoi.
tu le renclenches, tu le remboîtes,
Ouais.
et il s'allume pour recharger, et tu rechopes deux.
De toute évidence, ça
Pour
c'est
pas,
pas
hein,
top.
tranquillou. Hein.
Alors,
Merci.
parce que c'est... On n'en a qu'une de vidéo donc. Alors là, vous êtes sûrement beaucoup plus doué que moi. Je suis nulle comment je...
Elle serait où? Elle serait sur ça?
Elle serait sur la clé USB que je viens de mettre.
Ah, et la clé USB, elle est là alors du coup. Mince. Voilà.
Et là, conf, présentation, Grazina Gajowska-Lerner. Et là,
ça. Okay. Ce qu'on va faire. Mince. C'est celle-là. Hein.
Ouais, c'est celle-là.
On va la poser
on
là.
la met direct sur le... Oh. T'inquiète pas. Hein. Ah oui, il y a quelqu'un qui voulait te parler. Oui. Elle n'est plus là. Je le fais souvent, c'est pratique. C'est très bien. Elle a un projet financé, mais qui est en phase de commencer.
Ah d'accord, ok.
Et donc voilà, elle voulait te parler.
Oh là, les gens viennent me voir pour de l'argent.
What do you think? We are hopeful at this point, but with no definite answer yet. Very nice, perfect.
Donc là, on va laisser le son à fond pour là. Et c'est ici qu'on va se mettre. Qu'est-ce qu'on met comme...
Let's we close it for now. So your presentation is click, here, I guess.
Yes.
Attention.
Sorry.
Du coup, là, la clé USB, on peut l'éjecter, parce que je l'ai posée sur le bureau.
Ok. Bon, je l'enlève comme ça. Hein.
Attendez, on va faire des normes.
Bon, je la mettrai...
voilà.
Ouais,
vous l'avez fait, du coup, ça y est.
En fait, ouais. So your presentation is here,
Yes.
and then your video is directly on the...
We can open it.
We can open it.
File,
Your video is here,
okay.
directly on the desktop.
And the presentation is here.
So you want to start with the presentation, or you start with the...
And to have the full screen, it's here. Full screen is this one.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. This is the
Et il faut lui dire de parler
So,
dans le micro.
escape.
Ouais, ça on a dit à tout le monde, mais je redirai. Parce que les gens sont toujours un peu troublés du fait qu'il n'y a pas d'effet apparent.
Mais du coup, ça joue le jeu, c'est pas mal. Nous, on l'a dans le YouTube.
Is included in the presentation.
Il y a une personne sur deux qui disait ça marche pas en fait.
But it's better. It doesn't work. If it doesn't work, you go to the desktop to launch it.
Yes.
It's okay. It works.
Just to test for the sound. Let's go. Est-ce que c'est assez fort?
Celem naszego projektu było zbadanie warunków pracy, zwłaszcza dotyczących tych równego traktowania ze względu na płeć, w dwóch wydziałach naszego uniwersytetu, czyli Wydziału Matematyki i Informatyki oraz Wydziału Fizyki. Nasz map...
Voilà, remettez, faites comme... J'attends mon collègue pour changer les micros.
Ouais, super. Well, you're welcome. Sorry that for the scare. Marie Skyline, you're often by Marie. Yeah, of course.
rouge, mais elle me
Ouais, c'est un
garantit
peu la merde.
que ça va.
L'unité du on va lui laisser. Donc celui-là, on va l'éteindre et on va le remettre sur son chargeur. Ouais, je pensais que ça tiendrait. Allez, parce que
Je pense qu'il y aura pas mal d'enceinte et vous faisiez également sur le micro. Non, c'est trop galère. Enfin, je sais pas comment on pourrait faire ça.
ouais, laisse tomber. Ils n'en ont pas besoin parce qu'ils sont une trentaine dans une petite salle, ça va. éventuellement, je peux peut-être couper le règle. Non, je crois pas. Ouais, c'est le vrai. Oui. Ça y est, je l'ai fait 3 fois déjà avec Antoine. J'ai eu Antoine au téléphone. Et c'est bon, je repense. Nous, ça. Ouais, on le fait. Ah, ouais, là j'ai tout perdu. Bah, moi j'ai plus rien à faire. Là c'est bon. Ouais.
Les mails, les noms, j'arrivais pas.
Alors qu'avant ça allait. Ok,
C'est grandiose. Je pense que si on coupe le 7.6, ça marche avec YouTube. On a changé les micros. Jusqu'à midi, on sera tranquille.
Super, merci beaucoup.
On fera pareil.
Et ils sont allumés.
Ouais.
There's apparently a small technical issue for people who are online, so let's maybe wait a couple of minutes. we have a small technical problem for people who are online. So we're going to wait another 2 minutes to see whether it can be solved. Non, alors ça c'est bon. Mais maintenant, ceux qui sont en ligne, apparemment, ça saute l'image. Peut-être le son aussi. Mais, ouais. Bon, ici, normalement, tout va.
Et quand tu mets la carte, ça saute pas. Ok. Donc ça viendrait pas de. Ouais, mais ça a marché pendant 2 heures, quoi, tu vois. Bon bah tant pis, on fait comme ça. Non. Ouais. On restera à la pause de midi, hein, donc ça recommence. Ça marche.
Yeah, we're going to start in 1 minute, so you can get settled.
20 seconds.
20 seconds. 15. Count down. 5, 4.
Bon bah, non, ils vont reprendre. En fait, c'est sur YouTube, ça saute.
Ok.
Ça saute plus? Oui, ok. Bah, mais sur YouTube, ils ont plus le PowerPoint, c'est ça que je veux dire. Ok, ça marche. Bon bah nous, on s'en va, ils vont commencer. Merci à toutes. C'est le PowerPoint qui pose problème, on ne sait pas pourquoi. Donc sur YouTube, ils auront la caméra, mais on va élargir un peu pour qu'ils aient quand même l'écran.
Ok. Ah,
Et
super,
à midi,
super.
on refera encore des tests.
Ok.
Pour l'instant, ça marche. Désolé,
Ok.
hein,
Non, merci beaucoup. Merci à tous les deux. Ouais. So we can resume. We're really happy now to listen to Grazina Gajówska. We'll talk about between the humanities and sciences, about different understandings of gender inequality. I understand that for people who are online, there are some technical issues, and there's a solution that has been found that is a little less than optimal, but everything is currently done to make things better. The floor is yours, Grazina.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Grażyna Gajewska from Poland. I'm a humanist interested in theory and practice, feminist in at university area. My main research concern to cyber feminism and xenofeminist theory, so this conference is very good for me, but I'm humanist, yes, so my title between humanist and sciences. Thank you for inviting me to this conference. It's a great honor to be among such a wonderful group of research from different countries. I listened with great interest to previous lectures on project implemented under the Women Chair program. Joining this group, I will now present the main assumption and result of research from the project When Science is a Woman, Factors Determining Women's Scientific Career in Poland and Ukraine. The project was implemented by Polish-Ukrainian research team. The first impulse to implement the project was that in 2018, director of Adam Mickiewicz University created the group When Science is a Woman, to which he involved women working for women and gender equality. These were women from the humanists and social science. This team had been trying to engage female scientists in the science for several years. There were no positive results. We thought that issues related to gender parity research and reflection on the situation of women in universities would remain the domain of people from the field of humanities and social science. The Woman Chair project, led by the Paris Dauphine Foundation, created an opportunity to conduct research on the situation of women and men at universities. This project also helped to open the door between the exact sciences and the social science and humanities. I consider this to be one of the most important social results of this project. At the same time, this project was new area of cooperation between researchers from Poland and Ukraine in the field of gender studies. You see there are photos from two of our conferences in Poland and Ukraine. Both universities are important research and education centers in Poland and Ukraine, but Adam Mickiewicz University is the larger center, about 30,000 students and about 3,000 researchers. Generally, we want to explore how women and men in mathematics, physics, and computer science perceive gender equality and inequalities. The first stage of research was conducted using a survey questionnaire, which relied of the GENE questionnaire developed by the international academic community. It was structured in a manner which thoroughly respected and assured the privacy of the respondents. In this final form, these research tools comprise 76 survey questions groups into 9 problem sets. The second stage involved in-depth qualitative research. Okay, sorry. Here, the methodology involved free biographical interview based on previously interviewed prompts in the shape of a questionnaire. 2 universities used the same thinkers, so we had the same methodology. We present the results of our research at a conference in Poznań, in Poland, and Czerniowce in Ukraine. It is worth noting that initially both women from Polish university and the Ukrainian university denied any inequalities, even though many data showed that they exist. Only later, during long conversation, reflection on institutional and personal inequalities began to emerge. Of the 2 universities, Polish and Ukrainian, much greater opposition to talking about gender inequalities was recorded at the Ukrainian Center. So maybe let me show you a short video in which we talked about results of our research.
Celem naszego projektu było zbadanie warunków pracy, zwłaszcza dotyczących tych równego traktowania ze względu na płeć, w 2 wydziałach naszego uniwersytetu, czyli Wydziału Matematyki i Informatyki oraz Wydziału Fizyki. Nasz mały projekt, ten, który dotyczy 2 wydziałów, został zrealizowany w ramach międzynarodowego projektu finansowanego przez fundację mieszczącą się przy Uniwersytecie Paris Dauphine we Francji. I dzisiaj miałam okazję z całym zespołem zaprezentować raport i wyniki tych badań.
Najważniejszym wnioskiem z badań, które przeprowadziliśmy, jest chyba to, że kobiety mają trudniej w procesie awansowania na wyższe stanowiska. I jeżeli by pomóc kobietom, no to wówczas te awanse byłyby łatwiejsze i wtedy nawet presja związana z rolami opiekuńczymi czy z rolami rodzicielskimi nie miałaby tak dużego znaczenia, jak to się ma obecnie.
Najważniejsze rzeczy to one dotyczą bardzo szczególnych obszarów ważnych dla funkcjonowania i codzienności kobiet. To jest obszar godzenia obowiązków zawodowych ze sferą szeroko rozumianą rodzinną i prywatną. Tutaj kobiety doświadczają dużo większych przeciążeń, ale też presji i obciążeń fizycznych, realnych, związanych z funkcjonowaniem w tych dwóch rolach. Drugi obszar to różnego typu nadużyć. No niestety wynika z tych badań, że nie tylko co piąta, co dziesiąta osoba, dość szerokie widełki, doświadcza tego typu zachowań, ale że większość osób, które mają takie doświadczenia, to kobiety.
To, co jest najbardziej poruszające, daje się rozwiązać najtrudniej. To poczucie kobiet, że są obywatelkami drugiej kategorii na uniwersytecie. To jest chyba takie najsmutniejsze z tego, co dzisiaj słyszeliśmy. I także to, że wiele osób nie dostrzega działań, które są podejmowane w imię zapewniania równości kobiet i mężczyzn i w ogóle wszystkich pracowników na UAM. Także to oznacza, że te działania są jeszcze zbyt mało widoczne, zbyt mało wyeksponowane i trzeba jeszcze dużo pracy włożyć w to, żebyśmy dotarli do całej społeczności akademickiej.
Mam nadzieję, że mamy pewne pomysły, to znaczy tworzymy coś, co nazywa się Gender Equality Plan. Uważam to za zadanie takie długofalowe, na kilka lat, i żeby w ogóle mieć nadzieję na realizację, ale przede wszystkim trzeba zbudować tę strategię. Zawsze od strategii zaczynamy, prawda? Także pomysł pierwszy jest zaprosić jak najszersze grono osób, które są czy kompetentne, czy zainteresowane, czy zmotywowane. To będzie bardzo duże grono i do tego grona między innymi należą badaczki, badacze, których dzisiaj słuchaliśmy. I by to grono ustaliło właśnie takie główne punkty działania, tak? Jeśli chodzi o zapewnienie równości płci. I jedno konkretne też, co się w tej chwili dzieje, no to jest jakby rewizja i przypomnienie sobie i wprowadzenie w życie wszystkich tych postanowień Europejskiej Karty Naukowca, gdzie to się wszystko skupia wokół zapewnienia pracownikom, pracowniczkom jak najlepszych warunków pracy i rozwoju.
And I'm in Ukrainian Educational Research Association, and we have representatives from different regions of Ukraine, but this time we were working at Chernivtsi National University, and as a result we found out that Ukrainian academics do not want to talk about the problem of gender equality. And so on the one hand they say that the problem does not exist, and on the other hand they give a lot of evidence and a lot of different proofs that show that Ukrainian male academics get more support in terms of their promotion, in terms of funding their research, of research supervision. That's why we are at the initial stage of speaking about gender inequality in Ukraine and designing gender equality plans with the aim to implement them in Ukrainian universities.
Dans notre recherche, nous avons utilisé le questionnaire Gender Equality Audit and Monitoring qui a été développé dans le cadre du projet H 2020 ACT. Nous avons organisé 3 conférences, une d'entre elles en ligne. Nous avons aussi fait la promotion du projet dans les médias officiels de notre université et sur les plateformes des médias sociaux. Les résultats de notre rapport ont été imprimés et distribués aux autorités compétentes. En Pologne, nous avons en outre mené 6 entretiens avec les femmes scientifiques. Merci beaucoup pour l'opportunité de participer au projet.
After completing their research, both teams reached conclusion. We presented recommendation to rectors and faculty directors to contribute to gender equality at our universities. However, different political, education and culture situation meant that we obtained slightly different results and therefore also different recommendations. Polish researchers focus primarily on issues related to career advancement and respect for the work performed by women. they also talked about the unequal division of responsibilities due to the stereotypically perceived roles of women and men. Women also drew attention to informal groups of professional influence, which are stronger among men than women. Ukrainian researchers focus on legal, organizational issues, for example, developing and implementing the gender equality plan, or establishing a group of researchers who would monitor gender equality issues at the university. My colleagues from Ukraine also emphasize the need to show positive female role models in science, which will be important for female students. Unfortunately, due to the outbreak of the Russian-Ukrainian war in 2022, we were not able to conduct further research. However, I can tell you what happened next with our project at Adam Mickiewicz University. This research in the field of exit science became the basis of conducting broader research at all Adam Mickiewicz faculties. We work with the same surveys that went to women and men in all faculties and centers. That research played a significant role in formulating a gender equality plan at Adam Mickiewicz University. Finally, we formulate conclusion and recommendation, and research at Adam Mickiewicz University was part of a larger project, namely research on working condition and equal treatment in several universities and research centers in Central and Eastern Europe. Research results and recommendation are available on the website, on the Gender Act Research Group. You see, this is a link to the draft report. And in November last year, we organized a large national conference. I will win the Nobel Prize, Women's Careers in the Science, which was attended by the research from area of mathematics, physics, computer science, chemistry, and researchers from the social science and humanities. Our goal of engaging women in science in equality activities has been achieved. It was very important for us to involve people from science, social science, and humanities in equality activities. Currently, we are satisfied with the development of our activities. The project financed by the Paris Dauphine Foundation will therefore be continued at Adam Mickiewicz University in Poland in the form of new projects and conferences and institutional implementation such as the Gender Equality Plan. Unfortunately, we cannot currently share this research directly with our colleagues from Ukraine due to the war. However, we hope that a time will come when we will be able to take on new challenges and projects as part of international cooperation. Thank you very much. That's all.
Thanks a lot.
Yes, that's all.
So are there any questions? I was wondering whether maybe there were some affirmative action, for instance, measures considered.
I think our project is very important for my university and for my colleagues from Ukraine, but this time, only my Polish part teams continue this project. My colleagues from Ukraine, I haven't got contact, so I think now we haven't got with good project about future. Yeah, but that's all. That's all our project. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we will take a short break. I suggest that we stay in the room until the very last presentation of the morning. So yeah, let's stay around because it should be a short break, a rather short break. Of course.
Where is she? Was one? The person who was talking. Anyway, she mentioned the European Project Act. You mentioned the European Project Act. You don't hear? You mentioned the European Project Act, Act on Gender, and I was part of this project too, and I'm really amazed to see an outcome here of this project. This is very interesting. Thank you very much. I don't know.
I'm very happy because I have opportunity work with international team, and but it's very stressed for me because I'm not economist. I'm no sociology. My name area is literature. Yeah, so it's very stressed for me because you are different discipline, but not literature. literature. So it's very. I'm very happy because this project. Is develop my contact with Ukrainian colleagues, yeah, and develop my contact with Polish researchers, and good idea, good lesson for me, yeah.
Just to make a remark. We're all diverse, we're all different, and we all together, and we all have to learn from each other. I'm a mathematician, you know. I have a lot of defects. Okay? Thank you.
So again, we have just a few minutes before we resume.
Depuis tout à l'heure, il y a eu un problème technique. Alors, ce qu'a essayé de faire l'équipe technique, mais je ne sais pas si c'est ce qu'ils voient, c'est comme il y a la caméra là, d'essayer d'élargir le champ de la caméra pour qu'on voit quand même les slides. Mais c'est pas super. Mais ils vont ils vont revenir à la pause de midi pour essayer de régler le problème. Mais là, ils n'ont pas réussi, on a quand même repris. Merci en tout cas, oui, de me donner les retours parce que ça peut être utile, effectivement. C'est bien. Ouais.
C'est génial.
Tu regrettes pas du tout l'université?
Pas du tout. J'ai jamais fait autant de recherche.
Ah, super.
Non, c'est super.
Là, c'est 100% recherche, plus ou moins.
Bah ouais, c'est ça.
Ouais.
Donc avec plein de projets et des choses plus académiques et puis des choses plus évaluation.
Ouais, bon, c'est sympa aussi. Ouais.
Bah franchement oui, parce que ça reste la méthode, ça reste des entretiens, je fais plein de choses, mes collègues sont top, non vraiment. Pour l'instant,
Là, ça fait 1 an, c'est ça?
1 an et demi.
1 an et demi, ouais.
C'est vraiment super. Et là, je passe à 90% pour me libérer une journée, pour faire un peu...
Ok.
Je sais pas encore beaucoup si je vais faire de la recherche ou du tricot.
Ok.
Littéralement.
Oui, littéralement.
Oui, j'adore le tricot.
Si c'est pour faire de la recherche, à quoi vous passez à 90?
Parce que tu sais, il y a des projets... là, tu vois, par exemple, le bouquin, j'ai fini en partie sur le travail parce qu'ils m'ont gentiment accordé des
Je suis désolée, je check mes mails pour savoir quand on arrive.
Et donc, voilà, et donc en partie... Donc bon, je vais voir.
Super. Oui, puis le tricot, c'est bien aussi, ça te plaît.
Oui, c'est clair. Non, mais voilà, c'est pour avoir du temps libre. Je pense que ça va être un peu des deux. Mais c'est bien.
Oui, parce que le bouquin, tu peux faire un peu sur ton temps de travail, mais quand même pas...
Si tu vois, le projet...
parce que c'est de la recherche quand même, donc ça a du sens de se dire que tu...
Oui, carrément, mais c'est pas de la recherche qui ramène... il faut quand même qu'on paye les factures, donc il faut quand même que plutôt de l'activité.
Ouais, bien sûr.
Tu m'avais donné 2 jours par mois.
Tu vas faire un peu moins le temps parce que si tu arrives à faire durer avec des questions, c'est pas facile. Là, elle arrive vraiment incessamment.
libre. Mais en fait, tu peux faire des journées un peu plus longues et.
C'est ça, je fais 8 heures par jour, du coup, le vendredi.
Tu bosses autant et que t'es juste.
Okay, I'm okay. Not my finest hour, but okay. Yeah.
So we're super happy now to listen to Charlotte Alexander, and she will be presenting investigating gender's effects in medical residency selection in the United States. And if you please speak into the mic, it will seems like there's no effect.
Okay.
But people online can hear you this way.
Okay, perfect. All right. Apologies for being a little bit late. So I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for the invitation. I'm going to be presenting a couple of related projects that form part of a stream of research, the latter of which was supported by the chair. The first one is published. The second one is still a work in progress. So I'm really interested to hear feedback from the audience here, as the second one is really not finished yet. So just to set the stage, as a mental exercise, to picture the following categories of workers, or the following occupations in your mind: security and fire alarms installers, firefighters, surgeons, lawyers, registered nurses, preschool and kindergarten teachers. I suspect that you might have a certain gender in mind when you imagine the typical worker in these categories, at least in the United States. When we do this exercise, people tend to identify these as male-typed or female-typed occupations. And in fact, according to US labor statistics, these are highly occupationally segregated positions by gender. And so this is sort of our starting point in these jobs, or in this research, the idea that occupational segregation essentially allows people to form heuristics or stereotypes when they imagine who the ideal worker is in a certain occupation, which then turns into sort of implicit or even explicit bias as people are making selection decisions. And we're probably familiar with the work of Mahzarin Banaji and her co-authors, but I really like how she captures this concept that these implicit biases sort of form a thumbprint on our culture, right? The idea is they may be forming our idea of who an acceptable or who an ideal person in each of these job categories might be. And not just those particular job categories that I used as examples, but the topic of our work is anesthesiologists. And so this work began just fortuitously because an old friend of mine runs an anesthesiology residency program at the University of Washington in Seattle. And he said, well, let's look at recommendation letters and look at the language that is used in those recommendation letters for anesthesiology residents and see if we can identify patterns of different language being used for male and female applicants. Because the idea is, again, if we are all operating under these implicit biases with these heuristics and these ideas of what a typical surgeon or anesthesiologist looks like, then might those biases seep into the language that is used in recommendation letters, and then therefore affect the selection decisions when residents are chosen or denied a spot. And in fact, anesthesiologists could be on that previous slide. You see, in the US at least, it's a very male-dominated profession. 76%, this is over the last 10 or so years, of anesthesiologists are men. So what we did, just in short, is we gathered about 3,000 real recommendation letters that were submitted on behalf of applicants to this residency program. We used natural language processing and manual review to study both the form and the content of those letters. We used applicant-reported gender, and at the time, there were just two options, male and female, so those were the ones we used. And we didn't have much information on the other qualifications of those applicants, but we did have their test scores, their standardized test scores that they take to apply originally to medical school, and there was no statistically significant difference there. So these are essentially equal applicants, at least as far as we could tell with the data available. So just quickly, the descriptives on this front, the applicant gender, the gender of the applicants as they reported it, roughly mirrored the gender breakdown of the profession as a whole. And then the writers, interestingly, we didn't have any self-reported gender for them, but we used some rough first name gender identification tools, which aren't great, but we think that the writer gender was basically the same, broke down along the same lines roughly. Okay, so just very briefly, the takeaway here is that we did find some subtle differences in the language that was used to describe the men and the women applicants. What you can see here at the top, this is just a word cloud to give you a sense here, but the women applicants on the top and the men applicants on the bottom in lighter gray. You can see that for example, outstanding pops out there. The font size is in proportion to the number of times that word showed up. But it's all positive, right? Recommendation letters generally tend to be positive, so that wasn't a surprise. But you can see some differences. For example, you see the word anesthesia actually appearing more among male applicants, or letters written for male applicants. You see respectful, professional, and then you also see orthopedic. I don't know if you can see it, but near the bottom, orthopedic pops out for men, pediatric pops out for women, right? Again, potentially reflecting additional layers of occupational segregation, or areas in which women might practice anesthesia and men might practice anesthesia. So we can, in the interest of time, we can't delve into this too much, but there wasn't a huge difference, I would say, overall, where we saw women globally being referred to as caring and men being referred to as cool and professional, right? We didn't capture that in terms of at least the adjective usage. The place where we did see some interesting differences was used a technique called topic modeling, which essentially clusters words together into groupings of words that appear that co-appear in these letters frequently. And then we, as the researchers, go back and look at those clusters of words to identify whether they're any sort of recognizable topic. And so what we see here, it's a bit small on the screen, but we see a set of topics that those are labels that we gave to these clusters of words that appeared together very commonly in the letters. And then we can then see what proportion of each letter pertains to each of those topics. And so this is a rough way to identify the content of letters. And we see here the gray bar again is male applicants, the black bar is female applicants. And the ones I've circled on the left in blue for men and pink for women are the ones where there was a statistically significant difference in the topic proportions of those letters. And so interestingly, it was a little surprising. Some of this fit with my priors, at least, that men received much more discussion of their technical anesthesia skills in their letters than did women. Also their teamwork and competence and patient care. So the patient care piece, I was sort of expecting beforehand that women would be discussed as being quite caring, but in fact the opposite was true here. And then women, at the bottom you see women, writers discussed the interest that women had in the profession more than the men, and also discussed women's research skills. So the takeaway here is that we did see some statistically significant differences in the topics that were discussed for male applicants and female applicants. Those did not always break down along the lines that we might expect, at least based on stereotypes around sort of women being more relational and men being more hierarchical and technically skilled, perhaps. But nevertheless, we thought that this was at least an opportunity for further work, and that both the writers, the producers, and the and the consumers of recommendation letters should be aware of these potential patterns, that there might be systematic differences in the way women and men are written about. And lastly, that these sorts of analyses that we did are frankly quite easy. And we wrote this code, from the ground up, and developed our own natural language processing techniques. But there are off-the-shelf there is off-the-shelf software that can do this type of analysis quite easily and quickly. So if we're concerned, especially in an environment where there is such occupational segregation by gender, to begin with, that those who make selection decisions, whether in residency, medical residency, or postdocs, or just jobs generally, when they're receiving written material about applicants, it's really easy to do this sort of analysis, just to sort of raise a red flag to look for potential differences. So that was the first part of our work. And then our interest was piqued now with respect to recommendation letters. And so my friend, as I said, runs the anesthesiology residency program at the University of Washington. And so we were brainstorming with other colleagues there and had the idea of creating synthetic recommendation letters so that we could control the language that was used and the apparent gender of the applicant. And so this was 2 cycles ago, and this is still a work in progress. We did a first round, which I'll show you, which was just sort of proof of concept, and we're still tweaking the research design and plan to do another round of synthetic recommendation letters. And so just to summarize this briefly and then have a conversation in our remaining time, what we did is we used past real recommendation letters that had received high marks and low marks in the review process, the real review process previously. And then we identified 2 as high quality, 2 as low quality. And we switched the applicant gender. And this is so I'll tell you, initially all of these were written for male applicants. And this is a place where we're still thinking through how we can what we would need to do if we start with originally female applicants, letters written for them, and vice versa. So, but these initially were all written for men. And so what we did is we ended up with 8 total letters, 2 high quality men, 2 high quality women, 2 low quality men, 2 low quality women. The review process there at the university is unbundled, meaning that each component of the application is reviewed separately by the reviewers. And so we could insert these synthetic letters into the review process at random and then capture the rating that each reviewer gave to each letter, independent of any other pieces of those applicants' application. And the reviewers rated their enthusiasm on a 1 to 9 Likert scale. So we had, just quickly to orient us, we had our reviewers were almost equally split, male and female, and we had faculty and residents as reviewers, few more faculty than residents, but roughly equal split. We want to delve into that split a little bit further to see the extent to which we might see any differences by reviewer status or gender. And then the letters themselves, the 8 letters, were chosen at random and roughly equally reviewed by reviewers. So here's just one result that I think is interesting to chew on. But again, this is all fairly preliminary. We didn't really see many differences at the population level, meaning we didn't see of the population of letters. So we didn't see a striking difference wherein female gendered letters were getting lower scores across the board or vice versa. But the one place that was intriguing, so what we're looking at here is when we have one reviewer who reviewed more than one letter, when we held the quality constant, so when we had one reviewer getting high quality A letter male gender and then high quality B level female gender, the idea there was we tried to make those high quality letters essentially the same, but swapped the gender. They couldn't be exactly the same because the same reviewers were reading them. And then same with low quality. What we see here is where one gender got a higher score than another. So on the left are the left panel are the high quality letters. Most reviewers just reviewed them, gave them basically the same Likert score. And then when we had some reviewers that gave women overall higher scores and some that gave men overall higher scores, but those were basically the same proportions of reviewers. On the right with the low quality letters, that's what was intriguing, right? So here you see for the women applicants, we had a good number of reviewers who were giving the women applicants higher scores than the men applicants, holding quality constant. Now, this is where we're still working on our study design. We're not publishing this. We don't think this is definitive. We could think of a lot of reasons here. One thing that I am interested in, though, is that the initial letter was male. And if we gendered a low-quality letter that was a male letter, female, I wonder if what was happening is the female applicant was being described in terms that are typically used to describe male applicants, and that actually gave those female applicants a boost in the eyes of the reviewers, despite the overall low quality of the recommendation. So I think there's something intriguing here that might be more interesting than just, oh, reviewers are giving women a leg up even though their letter qualities are low. So that's the where we are on that. We have a lot of open questions here, and I'll close with we're trying to work with the centralized residency body in the U.S. that actually runs all residency applications, not just at the University of Washington, to see if we can get access to the entire nationwide set of recommendation letters to do this analysis, the first analysis, the text analysis, and we can not only look at gender, we can look at many other aspects of applicants, and we can control for many other aspects of those applications. And then, again, we would like to revisit the synthetic letter creation project with another round to explore more this interaction between gender and letter content. Okay, so that is it. I'd love to hear folks' reactions and questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charlotte.
So thanks a lot. It was very interesting. So I have a couple of references because in economics, some people started doing that too.
Yes.
And so there is a recent paper that looks at recommendation letters of economists applying to the job market in academia. Maybe you're already aware of it. Now there is one part. So in academia, when you apply for a job, the very last part of the letter, it's very powerful because it says in conclusion, and it uses very interesting words like that you can really, pin down how the candidate is. So they also do some robustness looking at this part. I wonder if in these recommendation letters there is something like that is very standard that you can explore a little bit more also for the synthetic thing.
Yeah, so there is, interestingly, a large sub-literature on recommendation letters, and in medicine as well as other fields. So unfortunately, our letters were not standardized in that way. One thing I left out that we did do is we isolated the sentences first that contained the name of the applicant or the pronoun that we thought referred to the applicant. So we were trying to specifically identify the discussion about the applicant as opposed to about the writer's own credentials. I will say that we could exploit that structure within the letters, but we didn't have that final, highly recommend. This is the student who is the best among, the top 5%. Some of that sort of term of art sort of language we did not have that I am aware of exists in other fields. But I think I know what paper you're talking about, but let's talk after so I make sure I do.
Anybody else? I was wondering whether this effect that you find that for low quality candidates, women have an advantage of some kind. if it could be due maybe to people expecting women to be discriminated against, and then I see a recommendation later for a woman that's not so good, but I think maybe that's not really reflective of the level.
Yes, I think that could be. And I should say that I think the reason we were able to do that study at the University of Washington is they have a very vocal commitment to trying to diversify their anesthesiology program. And so it could be that the reviewers were aware of the potential for women to receive low quality recommendation letters. I am very open to that possibility. That is a politically, I think, fraught possibility, because at least in the US we have very highly charged conversations about affirmative action and people getting an unfair leg up who should not be given an opportunity if their quality is low. And I think there's a much more subtle conversation that needs to be had. And so one reason I'm interested in exploring many possible interpretations for that result, and I'm saying this is not really a result, it's something that we're interested in exploring further, is I'm worried about a conclusion, frankly, that is reviewers are giving low quality applicants who are women higher scores, because I don't think it's that simple. But certainly that might be one possibility.
There is a paper in France about the competitive exam to enter to the École Normale Supérieure, and it's a school where you have a competitive exam for scientific students and another one for humanities. And the authors show that the candidates that are not expected in that field are advantaged. Then women are overrated in math and boys are overrated in humanities. It might explain part of your result, but it does not explain why it happens for the low quality but not for the high quality. But definitely, it seems that women are not associated with
anesthesiology.
Anesthesiology, and then this might explain part of the result.
Yes, I mean, I think it could cut both ways. When I started out talking about sort of the heuristics and the implicit biases, that that could cause women to be disadvantaged because they don't fit this societal model of who an anesthesiologist is, or it could cause them the opposite, right? And I think we need to do more work to pull apart those two potential effects. So cutting against type might be advantageous in some circumstances.
Thank you very much for your talk. It was very interesting. Can I comment about what you said, Elias, about the École Normale Supérieure? The women tend to be I would say in mathematics, because this is a field I know the best, tend to be pushed more at the oral exam, not at the level of the written exam. And our claim, and it has been studied, never was published because it's, how can you make room for women? It's just that you have to change the criteria. Women used to be disaggregated. There was an exam for women, an exam for men, used to be disaggregated, totally disaggregated, aggregated, sorry. And then they compared the works of women, they compared the works of men, as they could see they were just totally different. And if you would apply the criteria of men to women will disappear. And this is what happened. If you would want to have women in those very, very competitive and very, very, it's very good for people. They get paid when they study. There's a very small minority of people, but they get paid. They have very good conditions of studying, very good condition for their life afterwards. And they would, if they would want to have more women have access, as it used to be before it got same exam, they just had to change the criteria. It's very easy. But who wants to, in those schools, why would they would want more women? This is a problem, really. Okay? I'm being a little provocative, but this has been going on for 40 years now. 40 years, started in 1986. And we all knew that from the start. This is it. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Anybody else? Yes.
Thank you. It's just a really quick question, but do you observe the same result with the gender of the reviewers?
Yes. So we in the second piece of the synthetic reviewer study. No, we did not observe anything significant about the gender of the reviewers, but we have not yet fully looked at the interaction of resident faculty, male and female reviewers. So we're interested in that as well. I will say in the first piece, the first study, we also looked at the interaction of letter writer gender and applicant gender, because I didn't have time to go into all of it, but we did see some differences where we had on particular topics. So we combined the topic modeling with the gender of the writer and the gender of the applicant, and we saw that women writers, used more positive language on certain topics than for women than they did for men, and the same for and then male writers used more positive language on other topics, and I have a couple of hidden slides and we can talk about it later on that. But so this was sort of on the topic of additional analyses and interactions that we might explore. The synthetic letter writer project, we didn't see anything, at least on our first cut. We did see some interesting differences on the first project, using natural language processing on the letters.
Thank you.
Any other comment, question? If not, so we can take the lunch break. It's going to be in the same room than the coffee break, and we'll resume at 1:30. Thanks a lot.